Welcome, everyone. It is Jester Bell here with my co-host, as always, Jacob Airy. Let me get the chat up, everyone. The chat is cooked, somebody says. Okay, I hope that everything goes well tonight. I had a little problem with being kicked off that I've troubleshooted already behind the scenes, so hopefully we don't have any problems with that like we did in the Oscars stream. But if we do, Jacob, that is why he is the co-host and why he is taking over. So thank you so much for joining us. Jacob, how are you tonight?
I'm doing very well.
Okay, so once again, this is a just ask us anything stream. Any questions that you guys have, you guys are the ones who control the conversation. And be sure to comment in the stream below so I know that the chat is working, because one time Restream was really messing up and not showing me the chat at all. So far, I'm seeing you guys, but just be sure to comment anything. Comment the letter Y and let me know if you guys are down there and everything's good. If you absolutely want to make sure that your questions is answered, thank you, Pencilhead. Thank you, Pencilhead, for telling me that you guys are alive. If you absolutely want your question answered, then you can leave a super chat. And if you leave a super chat, then we will be sure to star it and highlight it on this stream. And it really helps out the channel, any sort of donation you can give. So, Jacob, here we are with 40,000 subscribers. Can you believe this?
It's hard to believe. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Jacob. I attribute some of my success to you as well, because I remember coming on to your channel in the olden days as well, and getting to chat with you firsthand back in the early days of being on YouTube. Let me see. One person says, I do want to answer this one. What do you have against Miss Marvel's power set? It's the best thing about her. I always thought it was lame, Jacob. We're talking about Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, you know, her embiggening power, where she makes her hands really big. I think part of the problem is some people were commenting me and telling me that the intentions behind her power set were supposed to be sort of like an awkward teen that is going through changes in their body and all of that, and the awkwardness that comes through that. But I think it's silly. And I guess that was the point. But then they tried to make Miss Marvel more and more part of large events. Like, that was the one that broke me, is they're having her retconned into Dark Phoenix with or House of M, things that she was never a part of before, and I never wanted to see her a part of, with those goofy big hands of hers. So that's really my problem with her power set. I thought it was kind of lame to begin with, and trying to fit it in with these bigger events and all of that doesn't really work for me. And Kamala's MCU powers aren't so bad, but I think it's kind of like making her Green Lantern all of a sudden. Do you have any thoughts on Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, Jacob? She's kind of been a topic around here. I threw out a video and it got 100,000 views for some reason about Miss Marvel. But any thoughts on her?
I think that she struggled because she was part of that very lame Marvel Now event where they just introduced a whole bunch of younger characters. Some were imported from the original Ultimate Universe, not the current one. And if you read her first comic, which I did, I wasted my life on that. Fortunately, I didn't buy it. I got it from a library. The problem is it's supposed to be from sort of a teen's perspective, but you don't feel like it's from a teen's perspective. You feel like it's the writer trauma dumping on you about their own family, just adding in the Muslim flair. But I don't really care for her. I think she was good in Avengers Assemble. I think she was in season 4. I did like her in that show. That was very well
think
written.
just for me, I already got out all my thoughts on my video. She started out as what I think was a harmless character and just got overexposed and pushed too much, and they're continuing to do that. But the Master of Gaming has a question that I'm glad he asked us. Thank you for the 2 AUD super chat. Thoughts on Wonder Woman game being canceled? This was another video that I was considering doing because I think that, well, it doesn't surprise me at all that the Wonder Woman game was canceled. DC Games has been in a really bad space after Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, and after the Gotham game that did not work out, Gotham Knights, that was a colossal failure that I had a lot of hope for. So it doesn't surprise me that they're not going forward with it. I don't think, here's the truth about Wonder Woman, and I considered doing a video on this. Wonder Woman does not sell as much media as Batman and Superman. Wonder Woman has for a long time been a merch seller. She is an icon first and sells stories second. Like I remember I realized that back when DC Rebirth was happening and Batman and Superman were doing really, really well in sales. And Harley Quinn was still doing well in the beginning there, but Wonder Woman sales were really abysmal and really far apart from what you would expect from them. So that is the problem with Wonder Woman. And I think that they had something there with Gal's portrayal that they then ruined with 84. Like James Gunn didn't even mention Wonder Woman when he was talking about their DC plans. And I don't think anyone asked him. So the sad truth about her is even though she is a member of the Trinity, the sad truth is that she's not as profitable as any of those characters. And I think after 84, I think that they just have not prioritized any of her stuff. Like he didn't even mention that Amazon show that was supposedly getting made or what the status of that is. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all with the state of DC games or Wonder Woman right now that that's happening. But I think that people who are shocked by that need to understand like the perspective that they're probably coming from is Wonder Woman is not as profitable as Superman and Batman.
I agree. I think it's largely because she's been mismanaged.
Yes,
She hasn't since the first Wonder Woman movie was fantastic. I know if some people have issues with the ending, fine, whatever. But I think after that, she was really mismanaged, especially in the comic
yeah.
books.
So that's what's right now, at least. Wonder Woman's not at a profitable place, so that's what's going on there, and that's why I don't think you're going to see anything major from Wonder Woman for a long time. People have said like Jessica Cruz and Starfire have animated series in development before Wonder Woman. Okay, well, next question is from
I really like Jessica Cruz.
yeah, I don't have anything against them. I just brought that up. From Dakari the Professor, huge congratulations, Teresa. Can't wait for 50K. What's up, Studio Jake? May both of you have a blessed month. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat, Dakari the Professor. He's been a long supporter of this channel. Thank you so much for helping us get to this position. One more super chat for now. We have Teague. Which movie do you feel was more influential, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse or the Peanuts movie? Do you feel that the 2D animation style is overused? I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was far more influential because I started seeing so many more things mimicking it after that. The Peanuts style did influence some movies like Dogman, for example. I just saw that seemed very influenced by that style, but I remember an explosion did not happen around the Peanuts movie style, which came out all the way back in 2015. I didn't see a lot of movies after that mimicking that style, but after Spider-Verse, I saw Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. A lot of animated films, started to mimic the Into the Spider-Verse style. That was considered like revolutionizing the animated industry because at that point it had just kind of fallen into a rut of CGI. I mean, it's all CGI, but just a certain sort of standard for it. And I don't think they were being very creative. Unfortunately, what Spider-Verse started might not last because I was watching a video today and I knew this for a while that the production of especially Across the Spider-Verse was so abusive to the animators involved, and it wasn't actually because of the animation, but because Phil Lord kept commissioning for things to be fully animated, and then he would backtrack and erase a lot of his work and don't want them to throw out all the fully rendered animation and do more of it. It became especially grueling, and that's why Beyond the Spider-Verse, we still don't even have voice recording or release date on that. So Into the Spider-Verse's progress for the industry might be erased. Thank you for the question. Okay, Jacob, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I agree totally with your analysis. I think Into the Spider-Verse was way more influential, and I love the Peanuts movie, by the way. Peanuts movie has a very special place in my heart, but I do agree with you. I think Into the Spider-Verse, especially with the animators releasing stuff like the canceled Batman Beyond film and whatnot, you can definitely see it was a go hard type that just made the animation industry just go nuts.
I love this question. Thank you for the $2 super chat, Dawson. Between Star Wars and Star Trek, who fell off harder? Jacob, I want to give that to you really quick. Like, which one do you think fell off harder?
I would say Star Trek because out of all the bad, there's really been only a handful of good. that has come out of Star Trek. Like, for instance, I haven't seen it, but I've heard that the last season of Picard is actually pretty good. I've heard Star Trek Prodigy is pretty good. But outside of those things, it's not really made the connection with people, not even Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Star Wars, on the other hand, they're still doing stuff that I consider good. So, for instance, I really like Andor. I like the first season of Star Wars Visions. I skipped the second season. I'll probably watch it, though, because I heard they're going back to anime for the third. And also, the Mandalorian first 2 seasons. So there's been more good coming out of Kathleen Kennedy's regime than there is coming out of the Alex Kurtzman regime over at Star Trek. So I would say Star Trek has fallen off harder. All the good stuff about Star Trek has come from fans. So like we saw that fan film where Kirk meets Spock, I guess in sort of an afterlife. That was a really good send off for those characters, but it came from the fans, not
Yeah,
from
I have a
Paramount.
hard time answering that question because Star Trek is something like Star Wars is something that I have watched a lot of the movies and TV that it fell off of, but I have tried not to touch Star Trek. But believe it or not, here is my story about Picard season 3, which everyone said was the good season. I gave it a chance, and at first I didn't hate it, and then I showed it to my dad and my sister, who are diehard Star Trek fans. They are even bigger Star Trek fans than me. Star Trek, I'm a fan of, but I guess I'm not a huge. I guess I'm not huge as they are. But they hadn't watched any of Picard up to that point. They had completely avoided it. And so I showed them Picard season 3, and I'm like, hey guys, everyone's saying that this is pretty good. And they hated it. They absolutely hated it. It didn't help that my sister accidentally started watching the first episode of season 1 with that. And so that already set her up in a bad mood, but it was just like, it was a complete disaster. They just absolutely despised it. I was wondering if people who loved it were just so beaten down because they had watched all that other stuff. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say which one fell off more because I almost think that Star Trek has, because I've seen even just clips of the extent of it, and even I can admit that it's perhaps worse than Star Wars, even though Star Wars I'm more emotionally attached to. But yeah, I would probably go with Star Trek as well. Thank you so much for that question. We do have another question from Newt Banner. $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Do you think Harley Quinn is a crutch for DC right now to make up for lazy writing? They just put her in everything now, and it's a tad annoying. Honestly, I'm going to be honest, fully honest. They are not putting her in everything right now. That was very much something that was happening, I think, um, up to a couple of years ago, I think. I think that it was really crazy in that post Suicide Squad, pre Birds of Prey era, and even a little bit after that. I can't tell you exactly when they took a hint, but sometime after that, putting Harley Quinn and stuff started to become more of a gag. Like there was a comic where I think it was Jonathan Kent who was starting another Justice League in the Justice League's absence, and Harley Quinn was there, and everybody online freaked out. I think this was in 2022. I think, or 2021. But when that happened, everyone was freaking out about it, but it was treated as a joke in the comic and it didn't lead to anything. So I think that might have been a point when the DC editorial finally realized, like, putting Harley Quinn in everything, no one likes that at all. So they haven't actually been doing it anymore. Harley only has her solo issues and that stupid fart comic. Like, she doesn't appear in like big events or Batman comics or anything like that anymore. They've just got her in that own little corner. Now, what I don't understand is why um somebody said you hate Harley. Oh, I thought about other people, but anyway. But what I don't understand is why they don't cancel that book, because that book has been not selling in the top 100 or 150 in such a long time. It's fallen off the top 200 at one point, and so I don't understand why that book isn't canceled.
Yeah, you can say that about a lot of things. For me, I don't. The last good thing I read her in was Suicide Squad: Kill the Joker is what it was called, where Red Hood becomes the commander of the Suicide Squad. That was actually a pretty good comic. I thought she was good in that one, even though she was fighting the Joker. But otherwise, I thought it was fun.
Okay, I'm just give me 1 second, everybody. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anybody's super chats. I think I got everyone. Yeah, I got everyone. Okay, just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody because if you pay money, I want to give you your money's worth. Okay, $5 from Andreas Hernandez. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, you look as gorgeous as Sydney Sweeney. Oh yeah, and I guess Jester Bell looks pretty too. Okay, Jacob, you have been now compared to Sydney Sweeney. I just don't know how I get such attractive guests on this channel. But Jacob
Oh, did we
brings the
lose her
eye
for a
candy.
second?
Am I back? Am I back?
I guess so.
I went off for a second.
You're kind of behind a little bit. Your audio isn't in sync.
Okay, I can hear you now though.
Oh, okay, you're
Okay,
back
sorry
now.
about that. It's not doing it as everything is updated. I don't know what could possibly be going wrong.
Right now, your screen just freezes every once in a while, but we can still hear you.
Okay. I'm gonna just keep on doing this. I don't think it's doing anything. Okay, sorry guys. Thank you guys for the comment about having Sydney Sweeney herself on here tonight. So next we have Gavin S. $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Congrats. Thoughts on Ennis Punisher, Marvel Knights, or Max, and ever thought of reading it? Welcome back, Frank, Bourne, and In the Beginning are great. So, in regards to Punisher, I have not read a lot with Punisher, so I couldn't really comment on that right now. What I can say about Punisher is that my biggest exposure to him has actually been through the games, and like there was the Punisher arcade game, which you can get now on if you for like the Nintendo Switch, you can get the full pack of all of the arcade games for Marvel characters, and on Marvel Rivals, he is very, very effective. Jacob, could you wave at me for a second? Okay. Okay, I just made sure you're not freezing. My exposure to Punisher is actually more just through Daredevil and through like the games right now, so I couldn't really talk to you about him in anything else. It's Marvel Knights. That's not a game. I know Max is like a brand, but I apologize. I cannot speak on Punisher in the comics. Jacob, would you be familiar with what he's talking about?
Yes, and I actually love Punisher Max. Just so you know, it is rated hard R, but it is so good. It is great. I haven't read as much Marvel Knights, which, by the way, just for Marvel Knights was a anthology series that Marvel did about all the street level heroes, including Daredevil and the Punisher. I think Hellcat was one of them too. But if you're looking for a really good Punisher series, pick up the Punisher in The Intruder. I think it's either called The Intruder, Intruders by Mike Barron. I highly recommend that one. It's got fantastic art and it is peak Punisher.
Okay, thank you so much for informing me. You did blank out for a minute there, but I didn't lose the stream or anything. I just didn't hear what you said. But Punisher Max, so hard R rated, you said?
Yes, very hard R, and I also recommended the Punisher. I think it's either called The Intruder or Intruders by Mike Barron. That is a really good Punisher graphic novel.
All right, it just reconnected again. I'm good though. I'm good. If it messes up one more time, I'm going to refresh. And Jacob, if that happens, then you'll have to take over. Okay. Okay. So
Sure
we have Orthwell Jeb right now, and I hope I don't blank out or anything. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat. He says, "Congratulations on 40K. I got questions." Shucks. Okay, am I back? Okay, sorry.
You're back.
I got a question that's related to Kirby. What is your favorite Kirby video game and power up? Good luck on getting 50K subs. Thank you so much for the question because I love Kirby, as you can tell from my shirts. But okay, favorite Kirby game? That's a hard one. So off again.
Oh, she blinked out.
Blinked out again. Jacob,
yeah. You did blink out, so we didn't hear your favorite for Kirby
Jacob,
game.
I'm going to refresh the page, actually. If you would just hold this down, and then I'll answer this person's question right after I refresh.
You got it. So basically, I've never played Kirby. I'm going to be honest with you guys. It's not that I dislike Kirby. I just never took the time to pick it up. But I do think his character is really cool. I do like some of the visuals and graphics I've seen from Kirby video games. There used to be an animated show on Foxbox that was really good as well. I did watch that a couple of
Okay, I
times.
apologize for that, you guys. So my favorite Kirby game, now that I've given time to think about, I have a really great nostalgia for Kirby Superstar. Not that we had that console that it went on, but I had the Wii version where it was like an anniversary pack of all those games. And that with that game, it was for the SNES, I think, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, for those who don't know. But I think that they really mastered like the power ups and the gameplay for that. And it was basically like 6 games in one. And so on that one, I just loved Cutter Kirby. I would just destroy people with Cutter Kirby. I loved that. They started to make things where you could like mix and match. I'm not sure if that was the game specifically, but they just had a lot of great power ups for Kirby and Kirby Superstar. And I think that that one really mastered them the most, and it gave you the most variety of gameplay in terms, and just made it feel like it had like 6 games that you could beat in one, and the best music as well. So that one, I also loved Return to Dreamland, and the most recent one, I completely keep blanking on its name, but it was like the Kirby Lost World or something. I keep blanking on the name, but that one was really fun. I conquered the complete game, 100% on every way you could possibly get. So I would probably go with Kirby Superstar. The first one I ever played was Kirby's Adventure in Dreamland, but yeah, I would go with Kirby Superstar for the SNES. So let me make sure that I got everybody. Everything seems to be working fine now. Thank you so much, Orthwell Jeb, for the $20, and thank you for the congratulations. Okay, we've got Andreas Hernandez again. Let me see. Just let me make sure that I didn't miss anybody while we were in decommissioned form. I don't think we did. Okay. Andreas Hernandez, do you think Into the Spider-Verse 3 is happening, or is it not going to happen because of the controversy with the Miles Morales actor? I don't think the controversy has anything to do with it, because he didn't do anything wrong. He just is being accused of being kind of weird when it comes to not knowing boundaries, when it comes to relationships, or rather lack thereof, in real life. So I think that that's one of the controversies that's going to go away in 5 minutes. It's less so when there's a voice actor. I don't think that they're going to let that bother them. I think what's more of a hindrance to that never coming out is what's been going on behind the scenes with Phil Lord and the animators who's worked for him, complaining about abuse. And once again, what I was saying about earlier, how that's affecting the perception of that kind of animation, because it's not that that animation has to be overly abusive to its creators. It was the process behind the scenes. But I can say that for Across the Spider-Verse, it seemed even overdone when it came to the animation and the design at times. So I think that that makes me wonder, is it ever going to come out? I think it will eventually, just because they want to commit to finishing that project, but it might be 5 years from now after everything that's happened. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be the actor. I think it's going to be the continued behind the scenes problems with the animation. Okay.
If they do decide to replace him, they should replace him with Ogie Banks from Ultimate Spider-Man, the TV series.
I'm surprised you're an Ultimate Spider-Man fan.
The TV show where Drake Bell voices Spider-Man, I actually like the season 2 on. I hated season 1, but I
Okay,
like
I
season 2
remember
on.
not caring for that show, and I was a teenager when it was coming out, or even just a kid when it was coming out because it went on for so long. Dostin888, I wish you and Comic Book Girl 19 would collab. She is cool. I haven't heard about that person before. Maybe I would have to look them up. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Another $5 super chat from DGK Drago. What's your opinion about Absolute DC? Well, what I will say is that I am trade waiting right now. Because that's how I like to read my DC books. I just got into the habit on Batman, but I have read the first issue of Absolute Batman, and it was really, really good. It was a fresh new take on the character that somehow in his almost 100-year history we haven't seen before. So I was really impressed with it, and it made me want to read the rest of it. But once again, I just prefer to read them in trade. I am intending on reading Absolute Wonder Woman just because Kelly Thompson, I think, is kind of an underrated writer. I've actually liked some of the stuff she's worked on before. I just think that she's been put on some bad books before. Not from her fault, but I don't think anyone is going to get Captain Marvel to work unless they're an interstellar writer, but they put her on that for a while. But anyway, yeah, I'm trade waiting with the Absolute Universe. But what I do notice, I pay attention to comic book sales every month, and it's always Ultimate Universe and Absolute Universe, and everything else is pushed down. Like even the Amazing Spider-Man isn't selling in the top 10 comics anymore. So it just shows like they have the innovative storytelling with good writers that I've heard on the one end, and then they have the regular books, which they're stuck in a rut and they refuse to ever change the status quos and ever even give good editorial to their books. Like X-Men has completely fallen apart now after, and I was really trying to enjoy it in the beginning, but they just have no editorial leadership over there. So Jacob, do you have any more thoughts on Absolute DC?
I've not read any of them yet. I'm not crazy as about the Wonder Woman one as you are. Superman does interest me because in the Absolute Superman, he comes to Earth as a teenager and actually gets partially raised by Jor-El, so that does intrigue me. Absolute Batman, I really like Scott Snyder, especially his New 52 era, but I also feel like I'm not crazy about the brutal Batman who chops off limbs. That's good for the Millerverse, but I'm not really crazy about it in other contexts. But that's just my own opinion.
Alrighty, we have 71 people watching, and before we get to another question, I just wanted to say I got my Disney variant of Uncanny X-Men of Gambit and Rogue today. I want to get all of them. However, the inside of the book is not so great. So, unfortunately, but I love the cover. I'm a sucker for Marvel's variant schemes, which I've only just now gotten back into. Okay, we do have a $5 super chat from Green Entertainment, and he asks, since you did a vid about Amelia Perez and its Oscar drama, would you do a vid about Anora and thoughts about it and keep up the good work, comrades? I've thought about it and I'm not sure. My problem is, while Amelia Perez had the kind of content where I'm like, I don't want to watch it, but this is not across the line for me in terms of content. I don't really want to watch 2 hours of a stripper in a movie for Anora. I have seen parts of it, and what I said was I just thought that it seemed very bland. Like it did, like not bland. Like I'm not saying that it was badly made. I think that Mikey Madison gave a good performance, but I did think that there wasn't anything so spectacular about it that I went, oh, this needs like the Oscar, like 4 Oscars for it, and beating out everyone else. So that was odd to me. The real controversy, though, has been coming in from Mikey Madison's words at the end of the Oscars, thanking sex workers for saying that she will always support them. And that's caused a lot of controversy, meaning, what do you mean? Are you going to use your money and influence to get them off the streets and actually help people? Or do you mean that because that's one of the things about Anora is by the end, it doesn't seem like it's promoting that life, because it does make it seem very bleak at the end. But in the beginning, it just, from what I understand, from what I've seen, just kind of treats it as just another job, just casual, which it's not, like, struggling to work at McDonald's or something like that, which what a lot of people have been saying is, they never show like the coked out girl who's been sex trafficked or has been groomed into that life or anything. So that's caused a lot of controversy around normalizing that kind of life, which they've been trying to do since that Hustlers movie has come out. So yeah, but I don't know if I'll do a video on it, because I think that the Oscars talk has kind of died down, and everybody seems to kind of be thoroughly rejecting the idea of normalizing that kind of stuff. Like, you shouldn't hate the people who are in that life or trapped in it, but you should not want to say that that's normal and ignore what actually goes on. So I don't know if I'll do a video, though, because I think that the Oscars are kind of dying down at this point, and I would like to move on from them. So we will see. But thank you so much for the question. Okay. Jacob, are you still with us?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure. I'm just trying to pick a couple of videos. Okay, we're going to do some, since we don't have a super chat yet, we're going to do a couple questions that are not paid. Gavin S. Jester, do you think the Ultimate and Absolute universes are doing better because of the freedom from continuity and they don't fall into the trap of never-ending story narrative. I think that it's two reasons. One, like you said, I do believe that they're able to tell some fresh ideas. Spider-Man is a specific one where they're finally allowed him to evolve into the place that people wanted him to actually be. But I think that the other reason is since the Ultimate and Absolute format is from writers, because it's more of a prestige format and it's going to cost more, then that means that they can pay writers who actually have experience with this stuff, like Scott Snyder or Jonathan Hickman. Whatever you think of their work, they do have experience and they have proven themselves as writers in the past. And they can actually afford them. With the other ones, they do people who they don't know their worth. Like Tim Seeley is on the Rogue Savage Land book. He hasn't written much good stuff. Or Gail Simone hasn't been good in like 20 years, and she is just tanking Uncanny X-Men writing wise right now. And that is, or Stephanie Phillips, who's on the Phoenix book, or I don't know, I'm blanking on the person who's currently on the Amazing Spider-Man, but it's all people who are either has-beens or who've never proven themselves on the main books. And I would say that that's even a bigger issue than just not being able to change the status quo, because good writers can make it work, but they only with the Absolute and Ultimate line are they hiring people who actually have something to offer. And they're just able to get the other people and sucker them in with low pay rates and all of that kind of stuff. And so I think that's the real big problem with comics right now.
I agree, and I also don't think it's the sticking to the continuity problem. Because DC resets every 5 years anyway. You know that, and Marvel does what they call soft reboots, like Iron Man Extremis, the graphic novel. It actually soft rebooted Iron Man. So instead of getting injured in the Vietnam War, he got injured in the first Gulf War. So stuff like that. So I don't like blaming the continuity because they change it and mix it up anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. And I think that Marvel might benefit from that changing their continuity because Marvel has tried to stay with the same continuity for years. Okay. We have one more super chat for now, and we are halfway into this stream. Thank you all for joining. We are going to go for about an hour because I don't want to exhaust myself like I did with the Oscar stream that went for nearly 4 hours. Thank you, Andres Hernandez, $5 super chat. Do you like Superman? What are your favorite Superman comics? And do you think it's hard to make a Superman movie and game? Superman, I do like. I would consider myself like an obsessive Batman fan, and with Superman, I'm just more of a casual fan. Not even casual, but like Batman is what I'm obsessed with. I've realized. So for Superman, I'm supposed to be reading. What is it? Oh my gosh, what is the why is my head blanking? You know, it's the one that James Gunn is adapting in in the latest film, I guess. What's it called? All-Star
Oh, I
Superman.
didn't know he
All-Star
was.
Superman. I'm
Oh, okay.
supposed to be reading that.
Great
I'm supposed
book.
to be reading that. So I'll be able to tell you when I finish reading that. I with Superman comics that I've read up to this point, it's mainly just like been bits and pieces of his history, like Action Comics 1 reprints and stuff like that. So I couldn't say if I had a favorite, but I don't think that it's actually as hard to make a Superman movie or game as they're making it out to be. I think that the problem is people behind the scenes who don't really get his character and who sort of make it seem like a more difficult thing than it is. Like I think Superman was done perfectly in the 90s animated show. I think that that was an example of how to do him right and how to characterize him correctly. My problem with James Gunn is just with a lot of Hollywood and sometimes people hear bits and pieces of what I'm going to say and they get confused. But my problem with James Gunn is, yeah, I'm not a big fan of his style, but we become so dependent on Hollywood and just a few directors, I feel like. And James Gunn, it's true that he is allowed to bring his own creative vision to it, unlike what's been happening with Marvel, where you usually don't even get that, which is what we need more of. But James Gunn, even if it's his own creative vision, I have seen it so many times for so many things, and I can still see it all over Superman. And it just doesn't feel fresh to me, and it doesn't really feel like what Superman needs. I really wanted something fresh when it came to Superman, so that's kind of my problem. And it's an industry problem as well because they haven't fostered up new talent with different diverse opinions and creative visions on these films, so that's the real problem.
I agree, and I do love Superman. I went through this really angsty period when I was a teenager where I just hated him for some reason, but I've grown out of that. I really like Superman. I agree with everything Juster Bill said about movies and video games. I think that his power set, if you go by either pre-crisis or even post-crisis Superman, I do think it's just an excuse for people not to make good Superman content. Justice League Heroes isn't a great example of this. It's a video game with Superman that keeps his power base, but they give him an enemy that can hurt him. And that's really what they need to do. As for recommendations, I'm just going to shout out Superman American Alien. Everyone should read that comic. It is a fantastic retelling of Superman's early days. So Superman American Alien, and also I love All-Star Superman, by the way. It's written by one of my favorite comic
We do have a
writers.
$2 super chat by Newt Banner. How would you guys fix the MCU? I would say if I was in charge of the MCU, I would have stopped everything after Captain America Brave New World. If we are in a universe where that film has to exist, I would have stopped everything after that movie, because that was the point where I watched that film after trying to be optimistic for what's coming up with the MCU. And I watched that film, and that was the breaking point for me. But of course, part of the reason it was the breaking point is I'm not actually thrilled by what I see of Fantastic Four First Steps. But what I would have said is, the continuity is shot. We've gone too far. There's too much of it. No one in the normal audience understands what's happening. And it's all basically ran into the ground. All the characters we like are either destroyed or have retired from these roles. I wouldn't have made Avengers Doomsday. I would have said, let's stop everything. This universe is done. And let's take Fantastic Four, which were never in the MCU, and let's start a new universe there. Let's do a first movie with Fantastic Four. It's in a separate universe, which is what they're doing now, but it doesn't have to be like in this weird Jetsons sort of thing. And then you do a Fantastic Four movie and a modernized version of it, not this weird 60s thing. And if that's successful, then you do an X-Men movie. And if you really launch the X-Men, which the X-Men alone could be an entire franchise, then from there, you're making more Fantastic Four movies, you're making more X-Men movies, and you can name drop Steve Rogers or Tony Stark and say they exist in this universe, and eventually float out new actors to play those characters, because there's so many stories about with those characters that we haven't gotten yet. And then you just go from there. I think that the MCU as we know it is shot. I am not looking forward to what they're going to do with Avengers Doomsday. I think that Doomsday is aptly titled. I wish they weren't making it at this point, because I don't want Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man to be damaged, because he was one of the last things that Marvel didn't damage in any way. And so I am not looking forward to that. And Thunderbolt should not be happening, and Fantastic Four should not have this direction. I think that Fantastic Four should have been saved like the X-Men, because all of this other stuff, I think, is set to fail. Jacob, what do you think?
I was not as down on Brave New World as you were. I feel like they tried to save it at least, but it was Captain America, Sam Wilson in a Hulk movie. They should have used more original villains that they hadn't introduced prior, and I think that would have made the movie better. If you're asking how I would fix it from this point on, I would exactly do what you had said. I would use Fantastic Four as this is another universe. We're just going to start over from this point. Although I would probably have it in the past, maybe not the 60s, but I'd have it in the 90s. And I would use the excuse, as much as I didn't like this movie, but Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I would use that as an excuse. I do have a little bit of faith in the Russo brothers. They haven't disappointed me as far as their Marvel films. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I agree with you, Thunderbolts. It should have just gone straight to Disney Plus. And also, I would ignore all the continuity of the Disney Plus shows that were even remotely connected to Secret Invasion. That show was an abomination of a great story
I think,
arc.
unfortunately, as the concept art that leaked showed, they are thinking about using like the Young Avengers and Disney Plus characters. She-Hulk was appearing in the concept art for Avengers Doomsday Secret Wars. So that
Well, let's remember though, it might be that might actually be test art from Kang Dynasty that they're trying to change, and a lot of that may have leaked out with the Doomsday stuff.
I hope you're right with that. So we just have two little super chats. Dostin, the Snyder versus Gunn debates have ruined discourse. I agree with this. I agree
Wrong.
because, and I'll tell you why, because I can't say anything against James Gunn without getting his goons coming after me. And that's exactly the way it was with Zack Snyder. Jacob, have you endured that at all? Because that's why I don't want to do DC videos anymore, because it's like, I'll say what I say and just yeah, I'm calling it like I see it. And people, the Gunn fanboys will just swarm me, and it doesn't matter like what points I give or whatever. They just think that this is one person out to get James Gunn, who is Lord and Savior. So I do think the Snyder versus Gunn debates have ruined discourse.
Nah, for one thing, Zack Snyder is a hack. He doesn't actually know how to make movies. James Gunn, as imperfect as he actually knows how to craft a good narrative and a good plot. Sometimes he's not always successful, I'll grant you. But and also too, the Snyder versus Gunn fan bases are wildly different. Snyder's fan base is like a cult. They call him Zaddy in their subreddits about him. Gunn's fans, I mean, they're hardcore fans. I'm not saying just casual fans who just like him and they're want to give his universe a chance. I'm not talking about them, but just the diehard, and the tryhards. They're more just like arguing with children. You know, you gotta show the maturity. And again, I'm not talking about people who just happen to like him and want to give him a chance, but just those really those weirdos who get into it. But yeah, I don't think it's ruined the discourse. I think it's made it more interesting, to be honest. I have
For me,
fun.
it isn't like who's a good filmmaker or a bad filmmaker, because I would myself agree James Gunn is miles better than Zack Snyder. I just have endured a lot of toxicity around the James Gunn fans. But you might be right. It might be recency bias. It might just be that the Snyder fans were definitely more of a cult. But and some people are saying that this is an L take from you, Jacob.
Zack Snyder is a hack. The Justice League, the theatrical version of Justice League, sure, it was not as good, but let's not forget it had two competing visions. When we got to see Snyder's full vision of the Justice League, he made it freaking boring. I don't need to see women singing as Aquaman go into the sea. That was a stupid, pointless scene. And also, he lied. He said that Cyborg was the heart of the movie. It was actually the Flash, and anyone who watched it knew that. And also, but they're both liars, James Gunn and Zack Snyder. They're both huge liars. I don't know if Snyder is a pervert like Gunn is, but you know, it's still the debate over who's the better artist. It's Gunn by leaps and
Okay, we
bounds.
thank you so much for Don Barry for the $10 super chat, but he didn't leave a question. We have another one from Andreas. How would you two fix Marvel and DC comics? Any plan? So that the comic book industry is so messed up. I have no idea like how to fix it. What I would say, for a while, one of my ideas about how to get more people to read is to go into like the graphic novel format and have those released in like stores and bookstores and all that to try to get people to read. One of the big problems with trying to get people into reading comics is that comics, their original format where you would have to buy an issue every month to get a full story, and everything was intertwined. There's a lot of storylines that it's really hard to get into by just reading one issue, because one issue is not a full story. Even a swath of issues is not a full story, and that's how they were back then to hook you and get you to read. But it's very difficult now. I wanted them to at one point shift, and I think that for number one, they need to make omnibuses a little bit more cheaper and available, because that's the only way that you're going to get a full story. I don't know how you do that. Maybe the paper that you print on and all of that cannot be so morbidly expensive. Maybe you can sell them in separate parts. But apart from that, I've been saying for years, I think that they need to evolve into graphic novel format. But people have told me that that's not going to work because, well, DC apparently sells graphic novels collections really well. Marvel does not. It's a lot of older fans that just like the format of buying one issue comics, floppies. So I don't really know how to fix it. And because one of the big problems is attracting talent and having the money to buy that talent, and they don't have that right now. And I don't think that it's a big enough concern for any of the companies to just shell out and start pouring in cash to make it work. But that is my take. I don't really know what a long-term fix for the industries would be. I can tell you I would undo one more day for Spider-Man, and that would get a huge sales bump, but I don't know what a long-term fix would look like.
And this plan would work for both Marvel and DC, in my humble opinion. What I would do is I would just cancel everything. I wouldn't even do an event. I would just cancel everything and saying, hey, this is how it's going to be going forward. I want to go back to the old way of where Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman have their own editors and their own team, and then everyone else is under the Justice League banner. Or if it's Marvel, Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Man, they're kind of the trinity of Marvel. And then but in this case, have a Spider-Man editor, maybe call it the Slingers, Avengers, Fantastic Four, X-Men. Everything is under those editors, and I would bring back great writers like Mike Barron and Chuck Dixon and Grant Morrison and have them take over these comics as best as I can, and hire artists that aren't on Tumblr. And I also see, just throwing this out there, I see Hell the Lore is in the chat. Hell the Lore, he and I are mutuals on X. Welcome, my friend. Welcome.
Thank you for being here, Jacob. You're bringing in all the fans. Okay, so let me see. What do you think about the from Nintendo 64? What do you think about the rumored Batman Arkham game, and do you think anyone can replace Kevin Conroy as old Bruce Batman in general moving forward? I mean, I know that there will definitely be more people to voice Batman, and I think do a very good job of it. Kevin Conroy is special in his own right with the work that he did, so definitely we will get a great new voice actor. Maybe my controversial take is that I kind of wish that they would stop reusing the IPs of an IPs and making everything Batman Arkham. I think that they kind of wrecked that and destroyed their fan base with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Beyond Arkham games. Sorry about that. I think that I would love more Batman Beyond content, whether it was that animated film or a game. But I don't think that it should be in the Arkham universe. I think that universe is spent, and they should have left it. They should have left it alone after before Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I guess they did that VR game, and I don't know how successful that was, but I just kind of wish that we would leave some of these universes alone rather than milking them to death. So I would be all for like a Batman Beyond game that is in its own separate thing.
Yeah, I agree. As far as who could replace Kevin Conroy, I would say some people said in the chat Roger Craig Smith. I really like Roger Craig Smith. He did a great job in the Arkham Origins game, or Anson Mount. He would do a good old man.
He's been voicing characters since I was a little kid. Literally, he was like, I think he was Roger Craig Smith. He was Sonic. Yeah. He was Captain America. He's been doing stuff for a long time. Because when you're a voice actor, your body never changes. You never have to be on camera. Like Yuri, I can't remember his last name, but the guy who voices Spider-Man in Insomniac, he's in his 50s and he sounds like a guy in his 20s on that game. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to write my question. All good. I was wondering if you've seen the Dogman movie and what is your opinion you have on there? I have seen it, and I actually thought it was really good. It wasn't good enough for me to run out into the streets and sing its praises, but it really surprised me for a Dogman movie. It had a theme to it. It had a lot of great humor I was surprised by, and I liked the animation. But surprisingly, it wasn't about Dogman. It was about the cat that's his villain and arch nemesis. And that cat has a clone that kind of becomes his son. And sort of what starts out as an abusive relationship between those two characters actually, forms into understanding the backstory of this villain and how he became how he is. And so that was really interesting, but it wasn't really a Dogman movie. It was about the cat, but I thought it was really good.
I haven't seen it yet, so I can't say.
That was the movie that I would say is inspired by the Peanuts animation. Okay, so for now, we've gotten through all the super chats, so I am going to go through and see. Somebody, I'm sorry, I forgot the name, but somebody did ask me, when did you get into X-Men, and what do you like about it? And so I'll just say I got into X-Men at around the same time I got into all superheroes. I think I was first introduced them through actually the Lego Marvel Superheroes game. I had heard of them before. I mean, I had always known who Wolverine was, or at least just him as an icon. I hadn't seen any of the movies, though. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. But I got into it through there just gradually and going back and watching the animated series like X-Men Evolution and X-Men TAS. So I was a fan, and Rogue was always my favorite. Gambit was always one of my favorites. But it was only recently that I really got back into it. And I can't remember what spurred it. I think it was a combination of I was just looking for something that I liked that hadn't been tainted by any new stuff yet. And my brother had been watching the animated series, rewatching it. And so that's how I got back into it and reading a lot of storylines that I just hadn't before. and seeing just how many great comics. I'm still reading through the Chris Claremont stuff right now, just seeing how many great comics there are of it. And so that's how I really got back into it. What I like about it, actually, it's sort of you haven't seen this in the films yet, but in the comics, it's sort of the blueprint for a lot of stuff, I would say, that got made into superhero movies, because the characters, there's really an interesting dynamic between them. Like, you'll have an issue that's fighting aliens, and then you'll have an issue which is them playing baseball. It's all very dedicated to the characters themselves and their personalities, how they play off of each other, their day-to-day lives. And it just feels very, very immersive and exciting at the same time. But it's basically a soap opera, and it's with these characters that you really care about and that you can relate to as outcasts, and all of that. So yeah, that's my connection to X-Men.
I first got into them thanks to X-Men Evolution. I wasn't allowed to watch the 90s series until I was older, but that's how I got into them. And to this day, X-Men Evolution has a special place in my heart as far as introducing me into Marvel
Okay, and we
Comics.
have one more super chat from Andres. Would you two ever create a superhero universe? I would if the idea came into my head, but right now I would be satisfied if I was to create like stories for X-Men characters or Marvel characters or Batman characters, and I was able to do that on my own. Right now I'm just working on like individual stories and stuff that don't have to be part of a major universe. Jacob, how would you answer that question?
I might have an announcement about that at the end
Awesome.
of the year.
So I'm glad we got that. Okay, so we have 10 minutes left and 74 people watching. Thank you guys so much for all the super chats and well wishes tonight. Let me see if I got any questions in the chat. Looking forward. Just about, have you seen the HBO series The Franchise? And if not, will you do a review? I have not seen it yet. I have a little bit of trouble catching up with TV shows because they take a lot longer to get through. Let's see. Someone says Avengers were always B-listers until the MCU, which is why they were only ones Marvel didn't sell. It's more like counting IPs rather than teams. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Can I just add on to that? I did think it was whenever people say that, they are correct. By the way, El Fascisto, you are correct. But I grew up loving these heroes, and so when they were like, "Oh, they're doing the B heroes," I'm like, "What are you talking about? Iron Man and Captain America and Thor are awesome." But they're actually true. It's just because I actually read their comics and watched their shows where no one else
Well,
was, I guess.
I mean, to their credit, all of them did like maintain their own series for a good decades. Like, that's a hard thing to do. So I think that they are downplaying their
Yeah.
success just a little bit. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy was the only thing that they actually did through that run that didn't have any sort of proven track record, I think, at that time. Um, Let me see. I want to scroll through here and see if I can find another question. Da-da-da. What are your thoughts on the case of Alec Baldwin being closed? I'm glad it's over. I don't really have any more thoughts of that other than Alec Baldwin's kind of an awful person because he killed someone. Will you do a spoiler review of Daredevil? No, I'm only doing one video on that. I'm not planning on doing a spoiler one. I just wanted to do a general overview. Scrolling through, seeing any more questions. Someone says it's Yuri Lowenthal. Let me see. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning and find somebody's question that I didn't see. Oh, I
You
didn't
have
see
two
that. Sorry.
super
Thank you,
chats.
guys. Okay, 2 super chats. Thank you so much from Newt Banner and Callisto. From Newt Banner, for each of you, what comic storylines are you tired of seeing on the big screen, TV shows, or animated series? Jacob, I'm going to let you take that one first.
The Millerverse. I like Frank Miller's kind of darker take on Batman, but it has been overused, oversighted, and overmentioned. I'm pretty sure that is the only Batman comic that Zack Snyder actually watched or read. Maybe he just listened to the audiobook. I don't know. But that would be the one I am so tired of seeing people reference. That's not the only take on Batman. It's a good take. I like Frank Miller. Nothing against him, but people are
I
overusing
actually would
it.
agree with you. Because the other one that people might bring up is Dark Phoenix. The problem with Dark Phoenix is they butchered it in The
Yeah.
Last Stand. Then got wasn't it the same director to remake what and make all the mistakes he made in The Last Stand again? Same
Same
writer. That
writer.
makes
Same,
no
it
sense
was
to me whatsoever.
yeah.
Like that's the problem. Not that the storyline doesn't work. It worked in the animated show. It's that you got the same writer to make the same mistake twice. But I would agree with Jacob. I'm tired of that take on Batman. I'm tired of everything needing to be based off of Batman Year One and The Dark Knight Returns, especially The Dark Knight Returns. I actually miss when they remember that Batman is a hero for kids. I mean, he's a hero for everyone, don't get me wrong, but I feel like various things like Killing Joke, The Dark Knight Returns, Grant Morrison, The Dark Knight, all of it together really have just made it so that there's almost a stigma about Batman that it needs to be super, super adult, and Batman needs to be really, really dark and angry. Even though you have stuff like Batman the Animated Series where he's a much, not even a lighter character, but he has a lot more heart to him. And I would like to see more of that after all of this years of gritty, realistic, dark Batman. And so, yeah, I think that's what it is. But Newt Banner says Dark Phoenix was what I was asking. Yeah, but I think that the problem is not Dark Phoenix itself. Once again, I think the problem is X-Men: The Last Stand, and that you remade it twice and butchered the Dark Phoenix storyline. That like Jean isn't even supposed to have the Dark Phoenix just inherently in her. That's not true. Charles is not supposed to block anything out. It was all made up. It's an alien entity, and they just butchered it twice. And that's why I actually get bothered when people say, "Oh, I never want to see Dark Phoenix again." I'm like, "Well, you've never even seen it done right. They never even did the first Phoenix saga, and it's been what 6 years since Dark Phoenix. Like the time when I agree they shouldn't do that right away, but by the time we even get to conversations about that, it's going to probably be a good 10 years since we've seen the Dark Phoenix. Third time's the charm."
The best Dark Phoenix is from X-Men, the X-Men
Oh
90s
yeah,
show. That has been the best
oh yeah.
adaptation of that
I
story
actually
arc.
like elements of that better than even the comic version. Callisto, $5 super chat. We have
100%.
about 5 minutes or 4 minutes left, guys. So if you guys want to leave any more questions, Callisto, are newer comics of less quality than those in the 20th century, less willing to offend, more PC? What I will say about them, well, I wouldn't say that they're less willing to offend. There's a lot of offensive stuff in them these days. I actually think they're more offensive because less eyes are on them. Because back when comics were more popular, more eyes would be on them. There'd be more of a chance that something could break out into a controversy. Even just 6 years ago, I think that was more of the case. These days, if the biggest controversy is perhaps if it gets let out to the mainstream and they react but haven't read the comic. But less quality, definitely. They don't have, they don't have either the writers or the editors to be able to make it work. And especially in the past, you had great editors who were able to refine the best writers and get it to work. So it's definitely less. I think that it's just something that happened gradually. Some people blame it on the prioritizing of movies. They blame it over the crash in the 90s. They blame it over just bad decisions being made that couldn't evolve it with the time. So yeah, they're definitely less quality now. Let me see. We have I think that's all the super chats for tonight. Jacob, are you still with us? Okay.
I'm still here.
Okay, we have about 3 minutes left, folks. Just want to just in case you didn't see my question, what are your thoughts on the Willow Disney Plus show and how they butchered Willow? Willow is a movie I have not yet seen yet, but I will say that it is lucky for what I've heard about that show that they completely banned it from Disney Plus. That is a rare victory for people who hate something to get that it gets completely taken off of that service. B-listers don't get their own movies even before Blade, Captain America 1990, and the 70s before that. He wasn't as big as he is now, but he was always Marvel royalty. Yeah, I agree. You can see the signs of that. Tony, for both of you, if you had full creative control of Lucasfilm, what would you do? Movie trilogies, TV shows, in what eras? What I would do, I would love to see either an animated show or a live action show about like the original expanded universe with Luke and Leia and the way it was supposed to be. I would love to see that adapted faithfully. I do believe there are people out there that can do that. I think that is the way to go forward with it, and I would just completely forget anything that happened starting with The Force Awakens.
Totally agree.
We got 2 minutes left. Andreas, thank you so much for being such a donor tonight. Would you ever make another type of films aside from horror, comedy, western, superhero, or sci-fi? I have done some comedies. I want to do a comedy next. My feature film script is a sci-fi movie. It was started out as horror, but now I'm leaning it to being more sci-fi adjacent. But it will have horror elements to it. But I like horror when it's exciting, not when it's super scary. So yeah, comedy is definitely what I'm thinking of too next. And I was thinking about doing maybe a comedy action parody, but that would be more of a production. So once I get my ducks in a row and just keep running this channel, I'm hoping to connect with people to make those things happen. Okay, so I think that we've covered all the super chats. We have 40 seconds left. Jacob, anyone else? How do you feel about Edge? Let me see. How do you feel about edgelord detractors of Batman's no-kill rule? The ones who think they're better than everyone because they don't like the no-kill rule. Do you want to take that, Jacob?
Yeah, I'm actually writing a scripted response to all these people. What they're doing is they're taking a few scenes that happened in his early days, and they're exaggerating them. If you would believe these folks, you would think Batman was like the Punisher, but the truth is he actually rarely killed people when he didn't have his no-kill rule. So I do think it is kind of silly. To me, it's what makes Batman unique. He's a noir hero, but he doesn't take life because he wants to hold on to that piece of his humanity that inspires him. They have various reasons for it. There's actually a great scene in Batman Earth 1 Volume 2 where Batman explains it to Alfred, and it's a really good sort of explanation of his no-kill rule. So I highly recommend reading that if you want to go against these arguments that these edgelords, as this commenter put it, make
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, I always just accepted Batman's no-kill rule as a part of his own psychology, and just that for himself, he's decided that that's the line he's not going to cross. And to Batman himself, that makes total sense. And knowing that it's a ploy so that his villains never die, but I accept that that's just how it works in the lore, and I don't get too hung up on it. But yeah, that's my take on it. Sorry, I'm kind of getting a little tired, you guys. We have gone for an hour. Thank you guys so much for all the super chats and all of the well wishes for 40,000. 50K is the next goal, and I believe that we will get there hopefully very soon. I'm almost done with my Rogue video for X-Men 97. I just want to sit down tomorrow and finish the script, and then I'll be recording that. Gonna have lots of other great videos this month. Thank you, Jacob, so much for coming on and answering all these questions.